So I was negotiating one of my book deals, and the vice president of publishing, I got one meeting with, and I was trying to pitch him on my book idea. He had like 2 or 3 Yankee kind of memorabilia stuff, and I made my pitch. So I did some background on him, found a baseball signed by Derek Jeter, wrapped it up, put it on his desk early in the morning, and I said, I hope we can play ball together.
Oh, that's great.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Main Street Business Podcast. I am so excited to be here interviewing another major influencer celebrity, in my opinion, and that's Darren Prince. Darren, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man, for having me.
Now, let me introduce Darren, folks. You got to get some perspective here on what he's going to be talking about because it's pretty cool. Darren's the CEO of the Prince Marketing Group, which is a prominent agency representing celebrities and sporting, athletes and any A-listers, and he's negotiating marketing deals and endorsement deals, licensing, and helping his celebrities protect their brand and their name and their image and likeness. It's a big deal. But he's also, and it's a really a major part of his life, is he's a global advocate for recovering from addiction and having mental health issues. How do you recover from all these things and still be the best you can be? He's got a foundation and a book titled Aiming High. So, I mean, all of you know, we could talk to him for hours and just learn copious amounts. We've got him just for a little bit of time here. But again, Darren, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, man. Looking forward to it.
All right. Now I told Darren this is what I want to ask him, and he didn't expect it. I could tell. So I want to throw this out though, right out of the gate. You've been a small business owner. You're still, we're all business owners, which I love. I know you started out just like a little guy like me too, but negotiations. I mean, this is what it really says to me when I look at your bio and cutting deals and representing everyone from Scottie Pippen to music deals with all. I mean, I'll be careful. I just watched the Jordan show, so I had Scottie Pippen on the brain. But when you are negotiating deals, large or small, all of us out there on Main Street and small business owners, I think a lot of us are self-conscious and scared about negotiating and saying the wrong thing. Do I make the first offer? Do I don't? What are your thoughts on negotiation in general? And maybe you have a few tips. I'd like to unpack that a little bit, if you don't mind giving us your thoughts on being a master negotiator.
I mean, I think it doesn't just go for our business. It's a great question, but what I'll typically do if it's Magic Johnson, for example, or Charlie Sheen and I were just texting for this call on a very high-end corporate keynote, I don't like negotiating against myself, and I think most businesses have to have that mindset. I think you almost need to give a range and put the ball in the other client's court, and I'll give a very wide range. If it's hypothetically something for Magic, I know where his rates need to be, but if it's something more higher end, like an endorsement, it could be something as simple. And I just did it the other day for Jerry West. He's not going to be interested if it's 50 grand, but it's also not going to be 5 million. So let us know what your range is and the services and the name of use and likeness and whatever else you need from him. And we'll try to find a middle ground that works, because it's not just, you're not hitting home runs. You're trying to hit singles and doubles all day long and build a brand and build a business. Any entrepreneur understands that. Anybody that's constantly looking for triples and home runs, it's not going to happen that way. And even still to this day, I mean, the home runs, they come very once in a while, but it's about staying consistent. And most importantly, as I talked about in another book that I wrote, the art of relationship building. You got to get to know your client on a personal level, because people work with who they enjoy and who they like.
I love it. And now I want to, gosh, you said a lot there that was incredible. And I love these an interview like this, because I sometimes feel like I'm the biggest benefactor. But I want to restate something you said for our listeners and small business owners out there. I oftentimes feel like if I'm the first one to offer, I'm going to screw myself over. And I loved what you just said. Be the first one to offer a range, not a number. That's pretty insightful, because you get the conversation going. So if you're negotiating a vendor, a lease agreement, buying a piece of property, or buying a new line for your business or whatever, you're throwing out a range to get them talking.
it gets the conversation going. I mean, you could have a product and you could say, look, it's really not worth their time to take a $500 PO, but I don't exactly expect 50 grand out of the gate. So tell me something that you feel comfortable with, and we'll go from there.
No, I love it. Now, then you also said about the base hits. I love that because in the movie, I mean, I know you've seen every movie because you got clients that are in every freaking movie. So I love Moneyball. And
Yeah.
when you, right, when Brad Pitt's talking to Jonah Hill and he's like, it's base hits.
Yeah.
You know what, boom, he gets on base. And I think so many people feel like they have to negotiate this massive, perfect deal. And then by trying to go for the home run, they get nothing. They strike out or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, and then by doing that too, you're losing the most important key to a business, which is the MRR, the monthly recurring revenue. So you have to focus on those singles and occasionally hit a double.
So I know you don't need to disclose who the client was, but if you don't mind, is there an example that comes to mind to you where you were like, man, I killed it on this one. I kind of negotiate. We were going here, but because of I was able to maybe present an angle that made a big difference. Does anything come to mind? I know you've done, oh, by the way, folks, over $200 million.
No, but I mean,
in deals,
yeah, for me in my line of work, I think it happens with us when there's deadlines. Usually when there's deadlines, it's an ad agency that might be scrambling for a talent, or somebody backed out, or it was a last minute campaign. And usually around Super Bowl time that happens. And we put Hulk Hogan in a Radio Shack spot and Ric Flair in a Sombra Hummus spot. And when I tell you, literally within 36 hours, they were on set after those shoots. So those got to the point where there's only one Hulk Hogan in the world. There's only one Nature Boy. And so you have a lot more leverage when it's crunch time, because there's really not much of a replacement when they're spending, $7 million on a Super Bowl ad nowadays. So those are always, like I said, more fun when they happen. But it's not just, it's not just about, saying, oh yeah, we crushed it on that one, because you want the other side to win too. There's been times where we've had offers actually come in much higher. Magic has this flat rate on keynotes. And we're a company, I was contacted maybe a year and a half ago for a group that got a rate that was $100,000 more than his keynote rate. And Dan Fleischman, a dear friend of mine, serial entrepreneur, had the guy call me. He goes, you're dealing with a booking agency that's probably calling Prince Marketing Group. Yeah. And couldn't believe it. And when I told him how much he was saving, I was like, no, it's, there's no reason to get gouged. I mean, I have no idea why somebody would quote that much, because all they're doing is somebody's lining their pockets, and it ultimately hurts the bottom line of getting the deal over to Magic, whoever it might be on my roster, to get them booked. And since then, that individual and his company, I've probably booked 6 or 7 other huge keynotes, because you do something like for somebody, they realize you're stand up and you do things right.
Yeah, and I don't know that's a great point too, because I don't know, again, I relate a lot to scenes in movies and things, and where you stick it to them and you think, oh, I got the best deal, whatever, you really cut out all the future relationships that you might have had from making a fair deal, rather than, oh, I got the best, I really screwed them over. And then, but really you hurt yourself. You screwed yourself in the
end. Hurt yourself. It's like I said, and believe me, there's so many times over the years where a deal could way in our favor. And look, as we grow, we do 8 figures, substantial 8 figures a year in endorsement and marketing deals. And we have moments like any other company, a lot of expenses overhead, where there could be a slower month or two. My biggest problem is all the clients we have are so absurdly wealthy. The majority of the huge opportunities really need to be a right fit that day, that month, that year for their brand. Or there's a lot of times, these huge stars will pass on opportunities, and it's life-changing money for other celebrities, but for them, it's just not the right fit. So that's why relationship building is so key, because you're going to go through peaks and the valleys, but if you have a slow quarter or a slow month or two, you have enough seeds that are planted that eventually it all comes back around.
Wow. Well, let's change gears for a minute. There's so much, again, we could talk about, and I'm so grateful that you're here. But and I just had a ting of emotion with preparing my question here for you because it's tough being a small business owner out there. And I think of negotiations and the pressure that you must be under a lot. And I know you've got a story that pressure took a toll on you and mental health and addiction and recovery, and you're very vocal about it. But I know a lot of people don't talk about it, and they're in a small business just struggling and no one to talk to, and they try to find ways to buffer. And any just initial thoughts for that small business owner that's watching and listening right now, that when you know they're going to bed just depressed, sad, stressed, and don't know the way out? What would you say to them?
Well, I started a mail order baseball card company in 1984 when I was 14. And the company exploded. By the time I was 19, I sold it for over $1 million. But, I had a lot in securities and inadequacies, feeling of less than. I was always told I had a severe learning disability. And I thought the money and climbing to the mountaintop as a young entrepreneur was everything. And not addressing it eventually wound up at the top of the sports and entertainment industry, representing some of the most iconic names in the world. And, I speak all over the world. And I say, like, at one point, what was once living to use turned out to using to live. And everybody's talking about, success and building, growing, scaling, but there's just not enough emphasis being put on the entrepreneur that's either in start out, middle mode, growth, expansion, doing great, doing unbelievable, getting near an exit. When you don't address those issues that we have as a youth or a child, whatever that trauma or inadequacy might be, you're not running away from it. I don't care what type of wealth can have billions. It affects you in your everyday life. And for me, the last 4 years before I got sober, from 2004 to 2008, and I was up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning wanting to kill myself every night because had all the money in the world, like I said, top of the industry, all the external respect you could ever imagine on the biggest talk shows, the biggest events, sporting events. But I lost the sense of self. And that all changed from on July 2nd, 2008, when I fell on my knees and called out to God. And I said, take the money, the business, the notoriety. I'll do anything for a single day of freedom. And I was given the gift of desperation. And slowly but surely put one foot in front of the other, started going to 12-step meetings, found a new family of my spiritual brothers and sisters that showed me the softer, easier way to a better, sober life and a spiritual life, to just have that mindset of the glass is always half full, not half empty. Focusing on what I have, not what I don't have. I was telling one of my ladies here in the office the other day, of course, everybody always wants more and wants to evolve and do bigger deals. But in hindsight, like, the majority of us really have luxury problems in today's world. They truly are. And, when you put that in perspective, and you can really look yourself in the mirror if you live the way that I used to, and say enough is enough, whether it's anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, bipolar, substance abuse, whatever it might be, that's creating unmanageability in your life. That's where the strength is. And
it's crazy. Like what you just said, that's kind of the luxury problems, or these, sometimes I call them those first world problems. And you really get to someone and you're talking to him, you're like, that's your problem. And we just get so twisted in thinking that we should feel better every day, or we don't have enough when we're living these incredible lives. It gets so distorted.
Yeah, and I think with that mindset, it's why there's more opiate overdose deaths last year than DUI deaths, and it led this nation, because it's so easy for somebody to just pop the pill. And I was a hardcore opiate addict. It was all painkillers for me for 24 years. And, it's just easy, and the doctors make it accessible. And, you ain't going to win. You're not going to win in the end. You've got 3 choices for anybody that's listening. I always say you can get locked up, you can get cleaned up, or you're going to get covered up, because nobody gets out, for free.
You said something there. It was interesting too. You said you were given the gift of desperation and you dropped to your knees and you're like, I got to give myself, to get out. Um, what what if I don't know, what does someone do? Like a lot of times people are forced into desperation because their problem, they lose everything financially. You had everything financially, but
Was
you
on
had
top
that
of the world, millions
self-awareness.
of dollars. Yeah, just the biggest celebrities from, like I said, Magical, Flair, Ali, Frazier, Evil Knievel. It was, yeah, I mean, you just would have never thought it would have happened. So as much as we're trying to talk to the everyday hardworking person, I'm sure you've got some very high net worth individuals that listen to this podcast. You ain't off limits. You ain't off the table because nobody, I'm sure that's listening, had a storied career like I did at the height, around the biggest stars on the planet, the most influential humans of the 20th century. And I wanted to put a bullet in my mouth every night for the last, few years, like I said.
What would be your, I know it sounds maybe juvenile or basic or too, I don't know, but someone that's listening right now that had those same feelings last night, this morning, right now, what do you tell them to do? Pick up a phone and call who? Where do they go? What do they do? I know that you're always reaching out and helping others with your foundation.
Yeah, I mean, first up, anybody could reach out to me at agent_DP on Instagram or message me on Facebook.
Wow.
But there's treatment centers everywhere. There's no excuse not to be able to pick up the phone and call a toll-free number for any treatment center that can help you first with the underlying issue. If there is a real medically diagnosed mental health disorder over and above the substance abuse, you can go to a hospital. They have detox centers all the time where people will go in there and you look at it when you're in that moment on that last day. A lot of times, even for me, I thought it was the worst day of my life. And fast forward, July 2nd, God willing, it'll be 15 years of recovery for me.
Oh,
I look back on
congratulations.
July 2nd as the greatest day of my life, but I thought was the worst. Now turned out to be my best. And I get more excited over my July 2nd birthday than I do February 6th, which is my birthday, because that's when I felt reborn. That's the day that I could reflect back on another year of growth, helping so many people around the world with my platform. And I'll go through different messages that I've had. My buddy Frank, I was going to New York on Saturday for a couple of big business meetings, and flying out of LAX, I get a text. He's from New Jersey with a picture. Just celebrated 13 years sober and met his wife in recovery. And they've had two beautiful kids since they've been married for 6 years in recovery.
Oh.
And he said, "Thank you so much, my brother. Couldn't have gotten here without you."
Wow. That's better than any endorsement deal.
Exactly what I said. I was literally sitting on the plane in tears, texting my sponsor, who's got 36 years. So I even hate using that word because he's like my big spiritual brother. And he's like, "Look, you put in the work every day. You do something every day to be dialed into the world of recovery." And Magic Johnson and Hulk Hogan are two of my dearest friends, and they've said it many times that, God can't help but to reward you when you live a life of service. And when you do it just because it feels good and you want to help people, that's when the reward comes in. If I lost the business tomorrow, I tell people all the time the most heartbreaking thing was everybody working for me, my mom, my sister, I wouldn't be able to take care of people. You're still talking to the same Darren Prince because I've healed. I've gotten to that place of, David Goggins is a good friend and client too, and he talks about it. And when we hung out last September, he said, "You went to war with yourself." And because that's the only way to come out on the other side. And there's days that I still have to, though. It's interesting because you get this beautiful sober life, but there's still coping mechanisms. Like, how do I celebrate differently when it's an incredible month or an incredible year? And then how do I deal with the letdowns and the disappointments when most humans can go out and, have a couple drinks, grab a bottle of wine. They can do, indulge in some things that just give them, a little relief. I mean, I have my routine. It's hanging out with my dog, massages, every once in a while taking a trip with my girlfriend. But you still have to go through it, because I think the first thing people want to do is you want to celebrate when all the good happens. And I think for me, the easiest thing is usually taking care of other people that mean a lot to me, because that just at least makes me feel good. And I let them go out and do the celebrating, because I know they're normal people that can do it. I lost those rights.
Well, now let's bring it back. You said something there. You may not know I'm going to go there, but you said something and it was special, taking care of the people you love. And you talked about your sister and your mom. And one of the topics in my book that's a big deal is I want all my business owners hiring their family, putting them on the tax write-off strategy of getting family involved in business. And I was debating with one of my partners the other day. He's kind of against nepotism. You shouldn't have your family in your business. I'm like, I want my family in my business. So if you don't mind me just asking about it, you just said you've got some family in your business. Has that been a blessing or curse?
My dad was heavily involved in my business. My mom and my sister aren't, although they're big cheerleaders. My dad worked out of the house, old school Jewish guy in the 1970s and 80s. It was a big thing to do. So every time I go downstairs into the basement, when I had my baseball card business, he had his whole staff down there working on computers and phones. And so it's just something that was instilled in me. And I've only had probably 2 offices in the 35 years I've been in his business. We work out of, beautiful apartment now in Brentwood, and before this it was Marina Del Rey, West Hollywood, my old place in Livingston, New Jersey, where I grew up. And the majority of the people I've hired have always been friends. They've always been people that have been very near and dear to me, because I believe when you have that, they know you better personally, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and then you find out along that group who can pick up the slack and do what you're not great at. And I think that's a big advantage, to be honest. And I think it's also about paying it forward. Like, yeah, of course you want to get a good couple hires here and there that are great people, and have them accelerate their path to success. But what better when you're keeping it in the family?
Yeah.
And it's, loved ones that mean the world to you. I mean, I wish everybody can blow past my success one day, because I'm at that place of being so healed and so humbled and zero ego that if everybody told me tomorrow they got a job or moved on with this incredible career, and I'm so sorry, I'd be heartbroken. But I'd also look back like, wow, if they weren't here at Print Marketing Group,
well,
would have they ever gotten to that stage in their life?
Yeah, I last comment. Well, you've been so generous with your time. Myself, a lot of people are like, well, isn't it hard with family or friends in the business? I go, it can be, but if you're mature and you've got the long run goal of and mindset of working with them, it actually brings you closer together. My son worked with me in my business for years, and 3 or 4 years ago, he's like, we both decided, you got to go work somewhere else for a bit. Let's do it. Go get some other experience. It was just so stressful. And then just this last year, back. And
I love it.
It's been huge. And we both came back with a renewed love and experience. And the whole thing drew us closer together when other families, they don't even hang out. I don't know. I loved it. But
that's amazing. I mean, I love that, because you're going through it together. You're going through the losses, you're going through the wins, you're going through the battles, you're going through the events. And, when it becomes a love and a passion, and you're able to do it with loved ones and family members or friends that are near and dear to you, it just makes it so much more exciting and rewarding.
And sweeter. Yeah, totally. Well, Darren, thank you so much. Any final word of wisdom for that entrepreneur out there that's just trying to negotiate a deal, trying to get through a tough time, maybe fighting their demons or just trying to level up? Anything come to mind that I
think there needs to be more emphasis on relationship building. If you're trying to get an account, if you're trying to build an account, build a relationship, always focus on the person and not the business side of things. Find out a little bit more about their personal interests, their families, where they're from, as much small talk as you can. I think that's everything. And too many people have gone away from that. It's a quick, hey, Are you interested in this? You want to buy that? You want to buy this? And I just don't think I don't think that works anymore.
Dude, I was going to say this story earlier. I was like, man, I'm going to talk to Darren Prince. I got to tell him this story. But I didn't see a spot until now. I got to throw this out. So I was negotiating one of my book deals, my first one, and I was been working with Entrepreneur Magazine ever since. And the vice president of publishing, I got one meeting with him, and I was trying to pitch him on my book idea. And when I was in his office, he had like 2 or 3 Yankee kind of memorabilia stuff around his office. And I made my pitch. I don't know if it sunk in or whatever, but I was like, all right, I got to work this. And so I did some background on him, found a huge Yankee fan. And you're going to laugh because it's like, probably have these laying around in, sock drawers. But I found a baseball signed by Derek Jeter. You have the little, verified, legit sticker, all this stuff. Wrapped it up. And I got his secretary to put it on his desk early in the morning. And I said, I hope we can play ball together.
Oh, that's great.
And I dropped it off, and rest is history, anyway, but I got the deal.
I love that because, I was in the memorabilia business for years, and to this day, I got out of it in 1995, especially as men, to be able to send somebody, something signed by Chevy Chase or Magic or Larry Bird or Hulk or Rick. And now it's in their office. So when they're doing other business and there's a signed Magic Johnson Lakers jersey on their wall, and that corporate executive or that team comes in to see my client, it's like, oh, wow, where did she get that? It's almost the best form of free advertising for me that I could ever do. And we still haven't gotten away from that. It's something I love to do. If somebody comes in their fan of Charlie Sheen, we'll get, some wild thing, Ricky Vaughn jersey signed and ship one out and have Charlie personalized. And the clients love doing it too, because it's a conversation piece, keeps them relevant. It's usually from an iconic moment in their career, or it's a special jersey that, signifies greatness, or an image that meant so much, to the world. And it's a great, inexpensive, thoughtful way to build that relationship.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't know if I get a chance to tell you my only real, we could talk about my football cards, which are completely worthless.
Man, because I haven't heard many people do something like that. That was really smart with the Jeter ball. I love that.
Well, I don't know. Well, Darren, you're awesome. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks so much for what you're doing to help others around the world. And we love to see our superstars and their endorsements and impact in our lives, but more importantly, see what you're doing with aiming high and helping people find spirituality in their life and recover. Thank you so much for all you do. Thanks so much
for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Seriously.
Take care.
Take care. We'll see you around.
Bye.
Thanks.